Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mr. Productivity Podcast. Hey, hop on over to my website, MrProductivity.com, M-I-S-T-E-R, MrProductivity.com. Everything you want to know about me is there. My guest today, Joe Pici, ranked number one in the world for sales training and keynote speaking by global gurus, is a renowned strategist and coach specializing in results-driven sales training. As the COO and co-founder of Pici and Pici Incorporated, Joe has spoken across 4 continents, helping countless professionals and companies sharpen their skills through his proprietary rapport mastery methodology. He is also the host of the Sales Edge podcast and co-author of the best-selling book, Sell Naked on the Phone. Now, when I read that for the first time, Joe, I got to tell you, I'm a daily runner, and there's this phrase called running naked. That does not mean you run without clothes. It means you don't have headphones on. So I just want to make sure you may be talking about being on the phone, making sales calls, being like really naked, but we don't want anybody running naked out in public.
That's all right. There's no pictures in the book anyway.
Okay. Now, we had a conversation a while ago, and it wasn't a pre-interview call, but it turned into a pre-interview call because when you started talking to me about how you help people, I'm like, Joe, you want to be on my show because I love the way you teach. You don't say I got it all figured out. People that tell me they have all the answers to everything in life really annoy me because nobody has all the answers.
No, I tell you, you can't get as old as I am and think you have all the answers, because if I had all the answers, I'd be on the golf course.
Now, what you wanted to talk about today, which I was really fascinated with, is 8 non-negotiables of sales and business growth. Because I think a lot of us, and I can speak firsthand, when I lost my corporate job in 2005, I had a fork in the road. Do I go back to corporate or do I go on my own? I chose to go on my own, and I think I made virtually every mistake I could have made because I didn't know what I was doing. I was spending money on this coach and on this course and on this convention. I didn't know. The first thing is, what do you need to know? I was just saying, hey, if I give money to this person, magic, it's going to make me successful. So I'm really excited about our topic today.
Here's the thing about building any business, okay, or sales. They're one and the same. It's about client acquisition, okay? And I will give you a free tip on how to hire the right coach later. And you'll go, why weren't you around before I spent all this money? But there are some non-negotiables when it comes to sales and business development. And these are things that most people negotiate because every day we have to ask ourselves 5 questions. Number 1 is, what do I want as an end result? And that should have a number to it. The second one is, when do I want that to happen? So your target date. And then your third reason is why. And why, I'm not talking about saving the whales, because why is it that you need to make that kind of money? It's amazing. I'll start with a coaching client and I'll say, how much money do you have to make? And I'll go, $1 million. And I go, wait a minute, you're not making $1 million now. How much pays the monthly bills? And then we can go from there. So the why. But then the other 2 questions, and this is where the hidden success is. What are you willing to do? What are you not willing to do? So with that framework, I'm going to roll out some non-negotiables of sales or business development. The first one is something I just talked about, creating clarity. And there's too many clarity coaches in the world to begin with, but clarity is a combination of a couple things. Number 1, it's what you want, then when you want it, then why you want it. And if you can't get past that, then everything else is negotiable. So therefore, if you say you want to make $250,000 a year, within 18 months, you want that type of revenue. And the whys are because that's what will pay my bills, give me some money to put away. Let me take my wife on a vacation once in a while. That's not with our in-laws. Whatever the case, once that's real, okay, then the second tier up, there's 2 things you have to bring into the table, which you have both of these. I watch your videos. Number 1 is ambition, and the other one is self-discipline. Ambition is not something. There is no self-help book. There is no motivational speaker that can impart to you ambition. They can motivate you till you walk to the parking lot. But when it comes to ambition, that's something that drives you to what you do every day, which is you go out and run every day. That doesn't come from a self-help book, okay? That's an inner drive. The other one is self-discipline, and self-discipline is the capability of saying no to the wrong things, right to the right things, and then doing them. And I heard Nick Saban say the other day on LinkedIn, actually, he said, success is simple. Do the things you don't want to do that you ought to do, and don't do the things you shouldn't do but want to do. And that's simple. So that self-discipline is, again, not something you can teach, but something you've got to learn through the hard knocks. And then you decide one way or the other. Am I going to say yes to the right things? Am I going to say no to the wrong things? Now, once you have ambition and self-discipline, I tell people all the time, lazy doesn't sell and lazy doesn't build a business. I don't have pedigree. You know what I mean? I didn't work at IBM. I didn't play in the National Football League. So when my wife and I created this business, which we've been in business since the 90s, and we are full-time in a speaking, coaching, training, consulting world. And I'm not a celebrity. You understand? Yeah, I got these awards for our sales boot camp is ranked #1 in the world by Global Gurus 4 years in a row. But that didn't come because I'm a celebrity. I'll say more people don't know who I am than do know who I am. You understand? I have no illusion here. I think it's come from self-discipline and ambition and just consistent work.
I want to jump in real quick here because you covered a lot in the 5 or 6 minutes we've been on the show already. And the 5 questions, I want to go back to the 5 questions real quickly. So you did talk about the end result, the what, and then the when. And the why is something that when I first got into productivity, I didn't understand this when I got into business. And I struggled. What is my why? And as a result of reading a lot of books and meeting a lot of people, especially on the podcast here, about 6 years ago, I got really clear on my why. My first why, when my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2018, 2019, she started going downhill really bad. And my first why was to make enough money so I can hire my father, who is her full-time caregiver, a live-in nurse. I didn't make them. My mother got put in the home in November 21, and she died in June 22. So then my next why was to take care of my father. He was dependent on Medicare, and I really wanted to give my dad the best private medical coverage. I didn't succeed at that, but that's okay. My point is my why keeps changing.
Sure.
My why right now is obviously to provide for my wife and our family, which is our 2 dogs. I heard something, and I'd like to know your thoughts on this, from Grant Cardone a number of years ago, because I was raised as an only child to my late parents, because my father passed away in June of 2023. I was raised that making a lot of money is greedy and rich people are bad. Then I heard Grant Cardone say, you want to become really rich so you can help a lot of people. And when he said that, it clicked, because if you're just living paycheck to paycheck, how can you help other people? I'd like to know your thoughts on that.
Grant is a master marketer, and he's right. Broke people can't help broke people. I'm with you. I think everybody's why is different. And I think, just like you said, it changes. Sometimes you run to the dream. Sometimes you're running away from the bear. That changes things. Sometimes you have to do things out of necessity. Sometimes you're doing things because of abundance. That's why I visit my why consistently. I visit those 5 questions every day because it can change overnight. Look at what COVID did. And I'm not taking a stand on that, but that changed the game for a lot of people. In fact, I read somewhere, I don't know how true it is, it was on LinkedIn, something that the fastest growing entity of people entering the job force right now are over 70 years old. I didn't say the biggest amount, I said percentage. That didn't exist 20 years ago. I think the 70-year-olds' why is different than it was when they were 45 years old. I agree with you, and I agree with Grant.
Thank you for giving me the kudos with the self-discipline about running every day. I've run at least 1 mile every day since August 29, 2017. Recently hit 7 years. Now I keep on going. And people ask me, how did you run every single day for over 7 years? And I say, well, start with day 1, then day 2, then day 3. Everybody says it's magic that you go from day 1. I think I'm over almost 2,600 days in a row. we all have to start at day one. I don't care if you're starting your business, you're starting your LinkedIn channel. It doesn't matter. You have to start with that first post, that first day, that first connection.
Yeah, and that's one of the things about non-negotiables. I've created non-negotiables for our business growth. When I sit with companies or individuals, we got to pare down what are those non-negotiables, and then we have to create the habits. I'm big on time blocking. I think just like when you run, you probably run a similar time every day. Yep. It becomes a habit. And it rains, snow, it doesn't matter. And so I don't care what I'm doing. Every day I'm going to make phone calls. Even during if I'm doing corporate training or if I'm doing our boot camp, when everybody else goes to lunch, I make my calls. Here at Pici and Pici, just like with you, we eat what we kill. It's like I don't have an agent. And the reason I do it this way is because of some of the training we do that I'll get to later is application based. And I feel I've got to be out there in the field experiencing what they experience. So did I answer?
When I was in college, this is another lifetime ago. I think it was in 1998 or 1999. I took a marketing class, and this guy's qualifications was he went to marketing college, got his degree, and he taught marketing. He was never out in the real world. He didn't do any campaigns. I'm like, and I didn't realize at the time. I realized many years later, I'm like, wait a minute. Did this guy ever do anything in the marketplace, or did he get a degree in marketing and now he's teaching us marketing?
Again, here's a segue into that very topic. I believe in the learn, do, teach qualification. First, you learn it, but then you do it. And then you're qualified to teach it. I had a good friend who was the head of the marketing department at Valdosta State. Tremendous. They're ranked way up in their marketing department. And he taught professional sales and entrepreneurship. Now, he never sold and he never owned a business. So we were close enough for me to say one day, do you ever feel like a phony? And he goes, what? And I went, you're teaching stuff you have no experience at doing. Why don't you go out into the community and find professional salespeople and business owners and bring them in as guest speakers? Because that's relevant. It's very relevant to what people need. So do you want to take the next step, or are we still on that same question?
One more thought before you go on to the next step is I have hired numerous coaches.
Yep.
And out of all those coaches, only one was action-oriented. Everyone else was high-paid theory.
Yeah.
One coach said, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how we move the needle. Oh, great. Now go do it right now. And I'm like, who does this? Because most people, they get on Zoom calls, they have these big productions, and they're just talking, but they're missing the one thing you talked about. There's no application. If you don't get the people doing it then, like you told me about your boot camp, which we'll talk about later, actually doing it in the training, they're not going to do it when they get home.
I know. And that's why when we opened up Pici and Pici as a training company, we said, what don't sales coaches want to train, and what those salespeople want to learn? They didn't want to learn how to master the phone. And I'm talking about warm, cold, and hot calls. And sales trainers wanted to do role play. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of people making more money than me. You understand, that are doing whatever they do. But I said to my wife, then we're going to hang our hat. One of the cornerstones of our training is going to be building the right messaging and then getting people on the phone live in real time during the training. And let's beat the toughest part of sales in the training room. That became the very cornerstone. But I will tell you this, if I'm not on the phone every day, I cannot do that. It will not translate. Back to you, it's the learn, do, teach. And I think if you do that, audiences are not stupid. They'll see through it. Okay? And we've all made mistakes with coaches in that. However, eventually, you get smarter or you get out of business.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we got that point done. I think it was a lot of information, and I could tell people this is one of those episodes they're going to have to go back and watch or listen to from the beginning. Already a ton of value. Okay, Next point, sir.
Next step. So now that's 3. Now let's kick it up to the next step, the next level. Now you got to be a communications expert. For example, and I'm not talking about talking a lot. I'm talking about 80% of sales and business development is your skill and ability to listen. We are master trainers of the behavior model DISC. We marry that into, instead of personalities, behaviors. We teach people how to recognize listening behaviors, which tells them what behavior style they are and how to sell to each behavior style. We take every aspect of sales and business development and break that down into better communication skills, not manipulation, but speaking in someone else's language so we don't confuse them. And there's your foundation. You got clarity, you got ambition, you got self-discipline, and master communication. Now, the next 4 are what has weathered every bad economy and every bad circumstance we have faced in all our years in business, because we are living in the worst economy of our lifetime. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what they say on TV. This is the worst economy I've seen. Okay, so think back, I think a year 2008, when everything imploded. We almost tripled our business. We were looking at, why are we successful? Once again, I'm not good looking. I'm an old guy. I don't throw money at advertising. So why are we continuously growing? We came up with 4 things. I'm not telling anybody to work 7 days a week, 6 days a week. I'm just saying, for the days a week you work, these were the 4 things that I recommended that we did. Number 1, every day I work on lead generation. Every day. We have about 20 ways we generate prospect leads. I do not buy lists. Once we generate a lead, the second thing I do every day is I make X amount of outbound telephone calls, and I make 3 kind of calls. The first kind of call I make is a call to book an appointment with a brand new prospective client. The second kind of call I make is follow-up calls with existing proposals, offers. The third kind of call I make is calls to existing clients to continue to grow the relationship, build long-term relationship and rapport, and then later upsell. So every day I'm going to make those calls. The third thing, and you can circle this one as the most indicative key to your business growth. How many qualified core stories, or what you might call sales meetings, virtual or live, am I doing every 30 days? The fourth one is I make sure I manage my highest revenue producing activities with my priority and time management system. When I locked down what we were doing that was causing growth, 2 years later, I found an article online, The Secret of Success. And it was written by this old guy. And he talked about the top income earners in sales over 10 years. And guess what they did? They generated leads every day. They made phone calls. They did sales meetings, and they managed their business. It was just like by accident that we did it. But we found out how aligned it was to this highly successful person. So I'll stop. I know that caused questions.
Yeah. First of all, just so people can hear the last 4 you gave, daily lead gen. And if you're working 3 days a week, that means 3 days a week of lead gen. Not too hard. Then you make X amount of phone calls. I'm guessing you determine how many it's going to be. One of them is book appointments with new people. Second is follow-up. Third is existing clients. Then your core stories or your sales meetings every 30 days. And then you manage your high leverage opportunities. And I think this is a good roadmap, what you gave us. Now, I want to go dive in a little deeper because I've talked to other salespeople. I've hired salespeople. This is 2024. This episode's coming out sometime in September 2024. So we just literally recorded it. Most people, you can't get their phone number. So if you go on LinkedIn, they may have their email address. Very rarely do they have their phone number. So what do you say to someone who says, okay, Joe, I hear what you're saying. Make these daily phone calls, but How am I supposed to get these phone numbers? I want to get really tactical here.
I do something most people won't do. If I cannot find a phone number, there's a phone number on our website. I call it. And every other sales coach I ever talked to told me I'm out of my mind. I can't tell you how much money we've made because I make that phone call and I know how to navigate a gatekeeper. I know how to matriculate my way to a decision maker. That's one of the things I do. Something else. I'm going to give a secret sauce here, and this is how I met you, okay?
Okay.
I view people's profile on LinkedIn. Most upper level or business owners have the paid for version. They know I have viewed them, therefore they view me back. Literally, I put, thanks for viewing my profile, let's connect. Once they connect with me, now I go to their contact information because a lot of stuff you can't see if you're not connected. 95% of the people will connect because of that. If the number's not there, I'll just say, give me your number, I'll call you. That's what I say. I don't write a long, convoluted what I do, who I am, where I'm ranked, what my website looks like. We're consultative sales. We're not transactional. But there's one thing that transcends all things, the law of numbers. If you do enough things, you will get enough numbers to get enough appointments to get enough business. Did I answer your question?
You did. And I have to share the story about you and me. I had read Alex Hormozi's book, $100 Million Leads. He talks about reaching out to all your contacts. One of those contacts I reached out to was Joe. I sent him a message. He called me. And I'm like, why are you calling me? This is the age of DMs. But Joe wants to be different. Everyone's DMing, everyone's texting, and Joe wants to be different. Now, he could have been really different and sent me a carrier pigeon, but let's not go that crazy. But he actually called me. He didn't call me that one time. He called me 3 or 4 other times. How you doing? How's your week? How's your day? Who does this? Joe Pici does that.
Well, I think, and this is, I'm going to get controversy. And like I said, a lot smarter people out there. I believe in the 21st century, the phone is the most effective way to get people. It is the most expedient way to find people. You don't have to worry about cybersecurity blocking emails and all that. And here's the thing. I'm not for everybody. And if they don't want to talk to me, I'm okay. I'm not forcing anybody. I'm not walking around the back door. You understand? I'm literally walking through the front door. I have a great message I leave to get return phone calls. In our boot camp, we allow 26 people. And of those 26 people, literally, we'll have 18 different industries. We'll have entry level up to 35 years experience. We'll have so many different kinds of people that come to that. Day 3, when we make our live calls, we have never done less than 77% conversion to appointment. We get through 92% of the gatekeepers. And same day, we get 42 to 50 return phone calls. It's because there's a system. I'm not charismatic and I'm not talented. And I don't think you can teach that. Some people just have it. How do you duplicate that? You don't. Everything we teach, train, and coach is about processes, skills, and action. And anybody can learn those 3 things. You don't have to be Attila the Hun to pick up the phone.
One thing that really struck me was you said 26 attendees. I recently went through somebody's boot camp, and I really enjoyed it because there were 5 people on the call. Which means this individual, this coach, did not say, oh, if you're behind, do it later. They would not move forward until we all understood. You can't do that if you have 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 people in the room. You can't, like Tony Robbins and all these big events. You can't. You just hope the people are going to get it. So I am a big fan of smaller groups because if you had, instead of 26 attendees, you had 2,600, now you couldn't do what you and your wife wanted to do.
The big thing is day 2 is the key. All right. Day 1 is process procedure. It's all about communication styles. But day 2 literally is target marketing. It's value propositions. It's the right message. It's all of the stuff you have to do. Navigating game. We literally build out their action plan. Then we go into 20 ways of generating leads. Then we build out their core story. The reason we build out the core story on day 2 is many times when we get in the room on day 3. We do a little warm up, and then we're on the phone by 9 a.m. And we're calling for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. We'll make hundreds and hundreds of calls. Everybody, all different levels. There's a lot of times it moves into the core story. And we had one guy close a medical division that was worth $10 million during the training. It's real. It's actionable. And so I think the key is when you find something that works, you continue to do it.
My point is you couldn't have done that if you had 2,600 people.
Well, you're right. And because you're in the industry of coaching and training and speaking, we have to determine the difference between training and keynoting. The bigger the crowd, the more keynoting it is. We have also a 3-day boot camp on the business of speaking, training, coaching, and consulting. Not how to talk, but how to get paid for it. We only allow 14 in there. Because on day 3, all of them get to speak. But what they speak about is if they were in front of a potential hiring group, what would they say not to sound like a peddler, but to give value so people would want a core story to move to contract, selling a seat, whatever. And so you have to know your market and you have to know how many people you want to put in the room.
That is so powerful. I've gone to 2 Tony Robbins virtual events, Unleash the Power Within and RPM. And it's just a sea of people. He's big on get in state. But the problem is they're giving this information. They're telling you to jump around. You're there all day. And I really didn't get anything out of it. And now I know the power of smaller get-togethers, like the one I was in one boot camp. He intentionally cuts it off at 6 because he wants to make sure everyone gets it. And I think smaller is actually better. If you really want to go to the next level, you're better off going to a smaller group than like someplace that got 5,000 people in it.
And everything is based on intent and what people want to get. And see, I'm insane. I've always been insane. So our boot camp starts at 8:30 in the morning, goes to 5. We get 1 hour for lunch. We have very little breaks. This is intense. I get in the room at 4 o'clock in the morning and I don't leave until and so I make myself available because these people, a lot of them come from out of state. And so I don't charge them extra. So I tell them, if you do not leave this place without all of your questions and everything you came for, all right? And so there'll be people that at 4:30 in the morning, they're walking in with their notebooks and we sit down. Because again, my desire is for them to walk out of that room at the end with the training totally paid for and not to wait 6 to 9 weeks. Because when it's application-based, and as you said, not theory-based, that can happen.
The one thing when you first told me about how you run your boot camps, I'm a very active person. I'm 59 years young. If you're not watching some video, Joe has more hair than I do because I'm in denial of my gray, so I shave it off every day. But one of the things that I always walk over 15,000 steps. So when people tell me it's all day, you get one break, I believe in getting up every hour for 2 to 3 minutes and walking around to keep the body active.
Oh, yeah. We have people that literally stand up during the training. This is not the Joe show. It's very interactive. It's set up in a horseshoe because there's so much cross business that goes on in that training. What happens is I'll have people that'll say, I got a bad back. And I'll say, okay, where do you want to sit in the room? If you want, you can stand up for the whole thing. You can walk. I'm not offended if people have to walk outside. That's not the case. But I think what's most important is that they get an agenda. Mm-hmm. And that they come all 3 because it's progressionary. This leads to this, leads to this. I've been doing this long enough that I know when it's time to give them a break. I don't have to have it written down. Okay, you've had enough of this. Take 10 minutes. Let's go. You know what I'm saying? But I believe in overfeeding. People are investing time and money. Some of them are on airplanes. Some of them are in hotels with us. And so I want to make sure that when they walk out of there, they got 10 times more than they expected.
Let's talk about lead gen because I was around as you were when there was no social media. There was no email. There was no cell phone. There wasn't even an internet. So in this day and age, there are so many, used the word earlier, gimmicks. People are, if I do a viral post, I'm going to make billions of dollars. You're not.
No,
so
you're not.
One of the most recent boot camps I went to, the coach didn't tell me this, But based on what he was telling me, I heard something. And I realized that I was on TikTok, got nothing out of TikTok, nothing on Facebook, nothing on Instagram, nothing on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And so I stepped back, and again, the coach didn't tell me what I should do. I'm realized LinkedIn, my newsletter, and my podcast. That's it. That's all I'm focusing on, because I realized I never got a single client from the other social media platforms ever. And so you don't have to be told by an instructor, by a coach directly. If you have open ears and an open mind, I formulated this decision myself. I'm like, why am I on TikTok? It's not doing anything for me, and it's wasting my time. It's almost like it's a hidden form of procrastination. I got to check on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, and you're not doing the work like making calls. You're like, let me create a video for TikTok, even though I get no leads at all, and you're wasting time. And so I just want to share that with, if I change the trajectory of one person's life as listening to the show and go, oh my gosh, I'm trying to build my TikTok, but I'm not getting any lead gen. Maybe you pull back. Don't delete your profile. Stop posting. They're not going to come and arrest you for not posting on TikTok, but you got to figure out, and you mentioned this earlier, Joe, what are those activities that are going to move the needle? If TikTok is giving you tons of leads, then by all means, go all in on that. But if it's not, maybe you should reassess that.
Yeah, we have to ask ourselves this question. Is what I'm doing going to get me where I want to go? So therefore, the only social media I'm on is LinkedIn. We have to know where our target market plays. Where do they play? I used to do a lot of physical networking, okay? Chambers and things like that. Those were great. We made a lot of money. However, for me to justify a 3-hour luncheon versus what I can do on the phone in 3 hours, there is no comparison. Because I am older than you, I'm fighting a time clock, but we all are. So I ask myself, are your actions today going to line up with your end result? And I heard you mention this on one of your videos. You did a video on distractions. Distractions are one of the worst things to breaking business momentum. But they can be honorable things. One of the problems with social media is we get into the comparison game.
Yeah.
Oh, that person must be making $80 million. Social media allows us to look great. Got it? And I'm not saying it's not legitimate, but what I'm saying is I have a coaching client from Arizona who built a big marketing company, sold it, right? And then I helped him redevelop a private branding and marketing coaching, and he just wanted to coach. And then recently he took the CEO's job at a good friend's publishing company. And I said to him one day, I said, hey, buddy, I don't see you out on LinkedIn. He goes, I'm not right now. He goes, I happen to know 10 people that can't pay their bills, but they're telling everybody how much money they're making. And why I say that, I'm not putting anybody down. We got to be careful. We don't get into the comparison game and think because something works for that person, you got to know what works for you. I know what works for Pici and Pici, the Sales Edge, and our other business Sell More Virtually. I know what works for us. I know what works in certain industries. But I know very successful people that do other things. But we've got to be careful where we're positioning ourselves, because you cannot reproduce time.
Mm-mm. One of the things I do is I schedule my days, and something I learned from Alex Ramosi is my morning times are my prime time. So I get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. So I block out my mornings because that's where I'm doing my outreach. All my podcast interviews, we're recording this in the afternoon on September 9th.
Right.
Because I know if I have a distraction, podcast interview or something like that, it's going to interrupt my maker time. The only thing I allow happen in my morning time, my maker time, is if I have a coaching client or if someone reaches out and says, hey, I give a free 20-minute call for HR professionals. Now they can book anytime during the day, but everyone else is from 1 to 4 in the afternoon, right? Because I want to save that time for the morning.
Yeah, it's so good that you do that. But remember, when the whole iPhone and technology boom came, people turned their minds over to technology.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do daily planners. They do reminders on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like science class I used to cut in college about the rat. If the bell rang, the rat would eat. And that's what we've become. And I still, to this day, keep a planner. And the last thing I do for the day before I close my office is I build out my call list for tomorrow, all of my top things that I have to be done. So when I open my office door, I'm ready to work. I'm not planning things.
That is so important. I saw a video. Dr. Phil said that our life fundamentally changed the day that Apple drove across the United States and dropped iPhones everywhere.
Yep.
That forever changed our world.
Sure.
Because I'm a paper planner too. I have a journal. I write in every day, like things that, affect me. Like I'll be journaling about you today and good things. Trust me about that. But the thing is, with the paper, if the power goes out, I still got my journal.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
If you're dependent on the internet, like we had Hurricane Beryl here a couple months ago, and we lost power all day. I couldn't get a cell phone signal, but okay, you can still work. And so I'm a fan. At 59, I still prefer paper because it helps me. You mentioned clarity earlier. When I'm writing with my pen, with my hand in my paper journal, it gets me more clarity. When you're planning your day on paper, it's more clarity. It's so easy to pick up your phone and go to Google Calendar. And I think I'll do this at 9 and this at 10. It doesn't really connect with your brain. They've done research on this. But when you actually get your journal and you write down at 9 o'clock, I'm going to call these people, it's different. Your brain looks at it like it's more real.
In our boot camps, we have huge manuals, but they're fill-in. People have to write in them, right? They learn more by that rather than just giving them a pad or just giving them a manual that's all written out. They stay engaged, which means they retain more.
Let me ask you about the daily calls you make.
Sure.
Because I've heard, again, I think I heard this from Grant Cardone. A lot of people, number one, they face call reluctance. The second biggest problem is they call and they actually get Joe on the phone. They get done with Joe's phone call. Instead of going to the next call, then they turn into their CRM and they got to make sure they spell all the words and they got to get all the fields filled out. And that's called reluctance, really, because they're now delaying making the next call.
That's why I believe in call blocking. I had my call block this morning. It was I take and I put them on a legal pad with the phone numbers. Got it? And I make all those calls. Now, either proposals go out or have to book another time or whatever. The only time anything goes into CRM is when I have my initial meeting. I'm not just going to throw things into CRM because I thought of somebody, because they're suspect.
Yeah.
So my phone calls are more qualifying than anything. I'm qualifying people. They think they're qualifying me. I don't want to talk to everybody.
That is so powerful. I want to make sure the listener didn't miss that. You are qualifying people instead of them qualifying you. And I believe it's like an interview. When you get on a call, it's got to be a two-way street. So they may be interviewing you, but you're like, is this an ideal client? Is this going to be a pain in my butt? Is this going to be someone who's going to do the work? It's not always about the money. I've had clients when I didn't have a lot of clients, and they were thorns in my side. And one guy, this is like when the pandemic first started, and we went from productivity to talking about COVID. And one day I was telling my wife, I'm like, I'm on the phone. This guy's paying me. And we're talking about the best ways to prevent getting COVID. I'm like, I'm a productivity guy. Why are we talking about COVID? And that's my fault. I let it go that way. But I was so thankful when he said, I don't want to renew the coaching. In the back of my head, when he told me that, I'm like, yes, because that's not what I wanted to do. And I take full responsibility on that. When I saw I was going off the track, I should have said, time out. Wait, this is not why you hired me.
No,
that's not what I do. So I'm not a blame game kind of guy. I'm a full responsibility guy. I let that go on too long, and I waited for it to come to its own conclusion instead of me saying, hey, listen, either we talk about productivity or we have to terminate this relationship, which would have been better off for me.
Exactly.
We covered a lot today, Joe. 47 minutes. Is there anything else that's on your heart?
I have a free gift. That's something I know your people will really like. All right. If everybody will take out their cell phone, and I know they all have one, and they're gonna go to their text area, and the message they're gonna send to Sales Edge. So the word they're gonna put in the message box, one word, Sales Edge. SALESEDGE. If your phone breaks it up, put quotes around it. It's got to be one word. They're going to text that to the number 59925. They're going to get a Pici and Pici link. Hit the link, and a splash page will come up. There's incredible amount of free downloads, courses, that whole thing. On there is a free webinar on sales success. There's no upsell. It's a great tool. Second thing I want to offer, our sales boot camp is October 21, 22, 23 in Orlando. Our business of speaking, training, coaching is 24, 25, 26. Anybody that calls and mentions your name, I'll knock $500 right off the top. The third, anybody that wants a complimentary, no upsell cup of Joe, pick up the phone and call 407-947-2590, and you can ask me anything you want. Believe me, I don't sell. I find buyers. Those are three things that we're offering you, but any last minute questions you have, this is your show.
I want to tell the listener, no, we are not going to repeat that because you can rewind the video or audio. And I'm not going to put in the show notes because I want to reward those people who actually consume the content. Because a lot of people will just go look for the show notes. Oh, Joe Pici's on the show. Did he get any links? They're not there. Because I want you to listen to the show. So if you didn't get the numbers, rewind a couple minutes and you can hear them again and again. That's one thing I started doing, by the way, Joe, because I want to reward the people actually who are paying attention.
Right.
Now who just go to the show notes.
And then we have a free podcast called The Sales Edge. Comes out every Tuesday. We're up to 466.
You got a ways to go to catch up to me. I'm over 1,300.
Well, you're amazing.
That's because a lot of people don't realize this, but sometime around the third week of December 2020, I decided I'm going to be like Gary Vee and create an episode a day for a year.
Wow.
And not realizing he has a team of 15 people. I started doing it and I made it till October, the second week of October 2021. And the problem was it really hurt my podcast because when a guest didn't show up, they had to reschedule or something. Then I had to stop what I was doing, working on my business to create an episode. It was really stressful. Then I started, my guests, they weren't fitting the show because I just wanted the guests who could talk. Right. And so that's why I have so many episodes. But I'm glad I do. I've been doing podcasting over almost 7.5 years. I love this platform. Yeah. I love the fact we're talking in people's ears. It's great. So I don't have any additional questions. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for actually calling me. It shocked me because somehow you were in my contacts. If you're not in my contacts, it blocks them. But it came up and it said, Joe Pici. I'm like, when did I add into my contact? I couldn't remember when I added to my contact, but eventually at some point I did. But I'm glad you caught me off guard because nobody ever calls me. And I think that was so great that you actually picked the phone up. And then I couldn't talk at the time. I called back. We had a great conversation. Yep. And you're a very selfless person. And that's a rarity in our world today.
Well, and you're the same way. And I'm going to have you on our show. We took the summer and I pumped out a lot of content because a lot of guests don't like to come on during the summer. We're going to start guesting again. And so we'll get you on our show like you. We got a big audience and they'll get a lot out of you.
I appreciate you being here. And folks, if you missed those numbers, rewind about 5 or 6 minutes. He gave you 3 ways to get awesome gifts. Go do that now, right now. Don't do it later. That's called procrastination. And after you get done with that, if you've never been to MrProductivity.com, MISTER, MrProductivity.com, especially if you're an HR professional, go there. I'm here to help you. I'll be back real soon with a brand new episode. Until then, remember, stay productive, but most importantly, stay positive.